Welcome to Quince Orchard High School. My name is Beth Thomas, proud principal, and we are excited to have you here this evening for our first ever second semester back to school night. So I'm going to go ahead and put our presentation up so we can get started. So a few key things I want to discuss before we jump into our agenda this evening. First, I want to give another shout out and recognition to Mr. Fierro and our students in his class who came together to put together that amazing playlist in honor of Black History Month. So thank you, Mr. Fierro, and all the students that contributed to make that a reality. Also, just for your knowledge, we are going to be sharing a lot of information this evening. And I know it can be overwhelming. It's overwhelming even when we talk about it, and we've been living it. So one of the ways that we are going to help to support our community is that we are recording this meeting, and it will be posted to our website by tomorrow. The second piece is that we have our entire administrative team, our athletic director, and our staff development teacher, all available here to continue to answer questions that you may put in the Q&A. So as we're navigating and going through information, we will do our best to answer questions. And if there are some questions that we feel we're starting to see over and over, we will elevate those and share them not only in writing, but orally. The other piece, I have all my notes here. I would be remiss if I did not take a moment to thank our amazing staff. It has been definitely a journey, and to add on to all of the updates regarding reopening to make tonight happen was a huge lift. And so thank you to our staff who have come together, because we know how important this is. We don't see you all, we don't see our community on a daily basis. And we want to make sure that you know what's happening and that we are enlisting and engaging with each other. So also want to thank and recognize our students. Our students have risen up in ways that we probably never could have imagined. And their resiliency and everything that they have done to continue to move forward is amazing and signals, again, what it means to be a Quince Orchard Cougar. And as we go through this evening, I want to also begin the conversation with a thank you for trusting us. I appreciate and value all of you, and thank you for trusting us to lead through this in times when we may not have all the answers. And so this evening, what we're going to share is, quite honestly, some things that we definitely know, and then some things that are our current understanding as of 6:05 on February 11th. So thank you. And this evening, we will go through the Quince Orchard draft reopening plan, our schedule and calendar for second semester, some grade level updates, SSL updates, grading and reporting updates, graduation plans, athletics, and then send you on your way to go to your Canvas classrooms to see some pre-recorded information from staff. So thank you again for being here, and let's get on with the show. So the administrative team, most of you know us. Beth Thomas, principal. We have Dr. Lynn Brown, 11th grade administrator. Thank you, Dr. Brown. We have Miss Edith Lee, one of the 9th grade administrators. We have Miss Vilma Nahara, 10th grade administrator. We have Mr. Josh Newman Sunshine, 12th grade administrator. Mr. Philip Yarborough, 7th grade, what am I saying, 7th grade? Sorry, 9th grade administrator, co-administrator with Miss Lee. And we have Miss Judy Yu, our business administrator. So thank you for being here. And also you're going to be hearing from, as I said, our athletic director, Mr. Jeff Raberman, as well as our staff development co-teacher, Miss Audrey Butcher. So just as a reminder, everything that we do is to create a culture and conditions for all students to experience excellence. And that has tested us in ways we never imagined. But we have come together and created what we think is the best opportunities for students to experience excellence in a virtual and for some soon to be in person. So again, the information, and you'll notice at the top, this says reopening draft plans 211. I did have an opportunity to present and speak with PTSA on Tuesday, and some things have even changed since Tuesday. So as you see these plans, understand that as soon as we have information, we update it. So again, today we'll share what we know about schedules, students and phases, what you can expect, um, physical spaces, recovery teams, the Board of Education updates, and information regarding communication, a survey that we're going to share with you, and then the calendar. So it's important to think about a couple things. Well, a lot of things. Let me say that. And I can't stress enough for everybody listening that what we do at Quince Orchard can be completely different than any other school because we crafted our plan based on the number of students who have indicated they want to return, the number of staff who have indicated that will be returning, because staff did have an opportunity through MCPS and ADA parameters to submit and receive ADA approval, which is confidential, and the parameters of CDC guidelines. So all of those pieces come together in one huge puzzle. And as one piece changes, it impacts another. So our focus is to create an optimal teaching and learning experience for students and staff within the parameters. And at Quince Orchard, we're going to utilize a structure for students to actually rotate through their scheduled classes with their teachers as much as we possibly can. Some schools are doing pods. We have made the decision that students will come when they are phased in and actually walk from the room that they would have with their teacher and go to the next class. So, and we're going to talk a little bit more about what that will look like this evening. So the schedule. Once students begin transitioning back into the school, and there is some conversation whether that this schedule begins March 15th or this schedule begins April 6th. It's important to understand that schedules have to be revised to accommodate bus dismissal because students will have an opportunity to take transportation to Quince Orchard and any MCPS school. And so this the schedule will shift. So if you're in person, bus arrival and teacher planning will be from 7:25 to 7:45. From 7:45 to 9 would be breakfast, student support, and then transition to period 1. First period and fifth period begins at 9. So those periods don't change. From 9 to 10 o'clock will be the same as they are currently. We have transition. If students are at home, obviously that continues to be a break, or they can transition from one room to another at home if you'd like them to. Then at 10:15, we go into second period or sixth period. Then there's still the lunch and student support or lunch and wellness break from 11:15 to 12:20. That is where it is shortened a little bit. Right now it goes to 12:30, but with bus dismissal at the end of the day, it will be shifted to 12:20. So from 12:20 to 1:20 would then be the change for period 3 or period 7. Transition, period 4 or 8 begins at 1:30, and then everything ends at 2:30. So once we know exactly when MCPS begins the schedule, we will make sure you have it in your hands. We will follow a rotation of an A-B rotation. At Quince Orchard, we are calling that a Q and an O rotation. We felt that there's too many A-Bs going around. So you have an A day and you have a B day. That stays the same. However, we will split our students to come on a Q week or an O week, which means if your student, and they will be notified, you will have a letter from us indicating which week they are to come and what group that they are scheduled in. They come for that entire week, except for Wednesday. So if I, Beth Thomas, am in a Q week, I go to QO, I go to my classes on Monday, on Tuesday, on Wednesday it's virtual, I go on Thursday, I go on Friday. The following week, I stay home completely virtual. That is the only way for us to be able to accommodate within the CDC guidelines in terms of room use, transitions, and meet the needs of our students. So I want to clarify a couple things that people may not realize. At Quince Orchard High School, we have the opportunity of serving students with special education needs in a program called Extensions. So on March 1st, in a couple weeks, only students who are part of the Extensions program will return to Quince Orchard. Nobody else goes to Quince Orchard at that point. However, under current guidance, on April 6th, students in grades 12 and specific special education programs, such as our facilitated communications, our Asperger's program, our Asperger's facilitated communication, and learning and disabled will return, as well as if they opted to return, as well as we are going to include students that are in our English language development program. And I say based on current knowledge, because I want to be clear with the QO community that we originally were told it was going to be March 15th. We have been planning and ready for our seniors and students in the group listed here to return on March 15th. However, at the recent Board of Education meeting, they indicated that it would be April 6th. If there is any change, if it's moved up, I want to assure our Quince Orchard community, we will be ready. We will be ready for students if it's March 15th or it's April 6th. But again, I'm going to say it again. Currently, grade 12 who opted to return will be returning on April 6th. Ms. Lee, are there any questions in the chat for the good of the group?
There are several questions. One is, will vaccine activity cease when students return to the building?
As of today, I have not been told it would end. I know that there has been a lot of conversation at many different levels about removing that. And as of right now, they will remain. Again, if that is to change, we will notify everybody immediately.
Next question is, when will students be notified of their group if they're going to be in a Quince week or an Orchard week?
Great question. We're going to go through, the other question was great too, sorry. We're going to go through that in a moment. But we have an obligation to begin sending letters out the week of February 23rd. So by February 23rd, students will actually receive in the mail a letter from us with a pink or gray, which means Q or O week. And we will push it out in every single way that we possibly can.
Okay, there was one other question about athletics, but I'll wait to ask that at the end.
Thank you. Okay, so just as I shared before, want to provide additional clarification. Again, March 1st, phase 1.1, our students being served in our extensions program. Phase 1.2, as I said, currently April 6th, could be moved, but currently it's April 6th. Right now, we have 294 students, and that's why we have to break up to a Q and O week. And then begin to transition as guidelines change, because the current guidelines in terms of how many people could be in a room, movement within the building, things like that, we have to split them in half. But we are positioned to be ready for phase 2.0 with our current model. One question that has come up by staff, and it may be coming out by parents as well, is that there are what the board is calling optimal dates. The board's goal is to have, the Board of Education's goal is to have everybody return by the beginning of the fourth marking period. But that is, they're optimal. So the only dates that we have right now are phase 1.1 and 1.2. All right, any questions I can answer, Miss Lee, before you take over?
I think the other questions will be answered during the presentation, so I'm going to hold off on asking them at this time.
Thank you.
So we're going to go over the instructional models at this time, and based off of the parent surveys, they went out a little earlier in the winter. Our students in our community, about 48% of our students opted to continue with virtual instruction, and we had about 52% of our students who wanted to have some type of in-person instruction. So can we move on to our next slide? So currently right now, all of our students are in virtual instruction. And what that looks like is you have a teacher teaching from their home, and you have students who are receiving their instruction from their computers at home. So all of our students and teachers are at their Chromebook or at their device, and they are taking notes through their device, and they're not coming into the school building. So we're all virtual at this time. Can we go to the next slide? Once we have our phase 1.1 begin and we have our extensions program come back into the building, our extension students will receive a direct in-person instructional model, which means that they will have classes just as they were last year before we let everyone home in March, and they'll have the face-to-face in-person instruction take place. They will be wearing masks, they will be socially distanced, but they will have a direct in-person instructional model take place, and teachers will continue to deliver the instruction as they did before COVID began. Next slide. And the majority of our instructional program, our instructional model, will be our support to virtual instruction. Now, what does that mean? It means that you'll have a teacher in the classroom, and like Ms. Thomas already mentioned, all of our students will be going through their regular schedule. They'll have 4 class periods a day. And when they go to the classroom, their classroom teacher, the majority of our staff are returning to the building. They'll be in the building, and so you'll be able to see your teacher. Your teacher will be teaching the lesson through their Chromebook or through their desktop, and they'll be seated at their teacher desk. Students will come in and they'll be able to sit in their designated spots, and they'll be receiving their instruction through their computer in that same space. So I want to go over, what that's going to look like, because you have a student who wants to ask a question. Instead of them, they might potentially unmute themselves and speak in that Zoom instructional space in that meeting. And they might also be using the chat, but the teacher will not be walking around and answering their questions, and the students will not be working together. They'll be still using that Zoom meeting and all of our internet support to have that instruction take place. In most of the classes that take place right now, we have teachers who will provide instruction for about 15-20 minutes, and then students are going to be working in their breakout rooms. They might independently do some work as well. So during that time, if a student has a question, they might raise their hand and ask their teacher. The teacher will be able to answer that question and provide them with some assistance. Now, we have to understand that some of our classes will have a support virtual model, a support model, and that is when you have 2 adults in the classroom. Some of our classes, you might have a paraeducator, you might have a co-teacher, you might have an ESOL teacher with the classroom teacher, and in those cases, it'll be a support model where one teacher will be working virtually and teaching the class through their device, and another teacher might be at the board or writing something, helping a small group of students, and that might take place, but we don't have the staffing currently at this time to have 2 adults in every classroom. So again, the majority of our classes will be a support to virtual instructional model, but we will have some classes that'll be a support model. I know that there are a lot of bullets here on the slide, and all of this information will be shared with you so that you can look it over carefully. But I think that that's a general overview of what the instructional models will look like when you come into the classroom. There might be some parents who say, if we have students come into the building and they're physically sitting in there, what benefit is there? There's a huge benefit because you might be more attentive as a student to pay attention to what's taking place. You will be more engaged if you see that there are other students and your teacher in the classroom, and that will hopefully, increase their interest in the lesson that's taking place. Thank you, Ms. Thomas.
Thank you so much. So there were a couple questions in the chat, and I think one of the biggest ones I want to answer out loud is what happens if there's an outbreak of COVID at school? And that is a very legitimate question, so thank you. The important part is that there are guidelines that we have to follow. So there are levels. I will post a link in terms of FAQs that MCPS has posted in terms of what protocols will be followed. So MCPS has certain protocols for, if it's one student, one staff, where it was, the amount of time. So there's all these different levels, but we have to report it right away. And there are protocols in terms of where a student or staff member goes right away if there is any concerns or possibility of being having contact with COVID. Sorry, I have a tickle in my throat. In terms of students removing their masks, we will remind them and highly encourage them to put them on. If they refuse, then of course we will have to follow the code of conduct, and we will have masks available if students forget them or somehow something happens to their masks. So, but they will be greeted. Students will be greeted in the morning when they walk through the door. We will not be taking temperatures, but there is a specific set of questions that we have to ask for any student as they enter. So they will be greeted every morning as they come into school. Right. So in terms of frequency, I shared earlier a little bit about our rotational model. This is truly customized, and I want to very much elevate the fact that when a family either changes whether they would like to come back, because maybe the survey went out and at the time they did not want to come and now they want their child to come virtual, or vice versa. At this point, we are looking at every single student schedule and looking at class sizes. So one student can make a difference in terms of being over the capacity for that room on that day, or in that week. And so it's customized. It's not by alphabet. And I'm just going to be honest and transparent, families. I'm sorry, but we did not pair siblings in the same weeks, and we did not go through, I'm just going to leave it there. We did not go through siblings because we had to take the largest class sizes and then purposely group students based on splitting up the largest class sizes. All right. So everything at Quince Orchard has been reimagined. And for those of you who may not know, I'm going to continue to say it. Currently, we are a vaccination site. That brings a lot of different challenges and opportunities. And so the opportunities is that we have really looked at every single space in our building to see where we could teach. And so while your child may not be in the exact room, they will be with as many of their teachers as they can. We have gone through, and I need to give a shout out to the admin team. Dr. Brown, Judy Yu, and Philip have been, Mr. Yarborough, sorry, have been the key people in terms of classroom setup and working with building services and literally walking to every single room and measuring and moving desks and taping them, and so that every single room can accommodate no more than 10 desks, with the exception, of course, of science classrooms. The other piece is that because of the vaccination site, being a vaccination site, we have lost some of our large spaces. So we have lost almost 6 teaching spaces in the use of the gym, the auxiliary gym, and dance studio. However, we have reimagined how we're going to use the auditorium and reimagined how we're going to, well, not reimagined, we're going to be using the cafeteria specifically for breakfast, lunch, and then transition time after school for our athletic program. Because if school ends at 2:30 and practice doesn't start, we don't want students to leave and come back. That also leads me to a huge comment that I'm sure I'm not going to be a fan for, but there will be no open lunch. We have to control the variables, and students and parents, I know it's like a rite of passage when you become a junior and senior, but we have to control the variables. And so if students leave, they are not to come back to school. And students will be eating their lunch in the cafeteria, not sitting on the floor in the hallway. So, and not sitting in classrooms. They will eat in the cafeteria. And that it's just, we have to do that at this point in terms of safety and protocols. There will be a space near the auditorium as a holding location if any student or staff member becomes ill or has any signs or symptoms. We will actually have a space that is like what's the word I'm looking for? A holding area. I know there's another word. It's been a long week, everybody, so thank you. And because we can't overtax our health room, we do have students who do still have medication, and we have students who, you know, may need to see the nurse for other reasons. So that allows us to have a space for students to be quickly removed, or staff to be quickly removed, and then exit the building. We will be utilizing spaces like the stage as a classroom. We will be utilizing spaces as like the auditorium as a classroom. So if you can imagine a space in our school, it's going to be used. Now, if something changes and, you know, the vaccination center moves, then we can make some modifications. So our hallways, we are in the process of our creating a transition plan. And what that means, students and families, is that we have to control the variables. And so there's 15 minutes in between each class, and that allows us some structured transition time. So we're looking at directional arrows, restrooms, sinks are being blocked off, and unfortunately there will be no use of the water fountains. Families, this is hard for me to say, but again, I'm going to go back to my whole conversation around controlling the variables. Most meetings will still happen virtually. Our goal is to create the safest space for students and staff. And so we will not have that time where you'll be able to run in and drop something off. You can drop it off, but you're not going to be able to come in. So we'll have sign in and sign out. Will have to be a little bit different, and students will have to come to you. And then, of course, we're looking at the workspaces for staff. Right now, the media center will be used as a workstation, a work area for staff, because of the numbers of people that could be in any department office at one time. So I feel like I've said a lot just now. Ms. Lee, questions?
We have a question about parking for seniors. If the lot is full due to the vaccine site, what will be done about parking?
Yeah. So about that, I honestly don't have an answer right now. I wish I did. I don't have an answer for where their staff is going to park. And so we're doing everything we can to try to get some clear answers because we need staff to be there to be able to teach students. And we want to try to offer those opportunities. So right now, I don't have an answer. We will have an answer prior to obviously students returning.
Okay, next question is for the 2 lunch rotations. Where will students be during lunch when they are not eating in the cafeteria?
Great question. I need to do a better job. They're all great questions. So students, on the lunch rotation, if you have second period, because on 8A, second period is right before lunch, half of your class will go to the cafeteria, or we're working on this, sorry, let me clarify. Your class either goes to the first lunch or the second lunch. If you don't go to lunch, you remain in that classroom, and that's just downtime for you. There will be an adult in there, but it will be downtime for you.
Next question, will we have snow days or will they just be virtual days when we reopen?
So I'm giggling. I'm not giggling, but when things happened last year, first of all, if you don't know, my entire family either goes to MCPS or works for MCPS. So we had these running conversations, and I said, right now, I don't know how we're going to do snow days. And so each snow day that's come up recently, it's like, okay, what's going to happen? So right now, if I had to guess based on current trends, I think it will be all virtual. But again, I'm not the Board of Education. I'm just going on what has been happening the past couple weeks.
Okay, we can move on. I'll ask questions again during the next stop.
Okay, so communication to families. So we've begun to share our initial planning ideas through obviously the PTA meeting this evening. We're meeting with staff tomorrow, and we'll continue to update that. The week of February 23rd, we're going to inform families we're actually going to mail it, and it'll be electronic about the in-person experience, teachers, and schedule for students returning. Then February 26th is the last day for families to contact the school regarding any change from their original selection. So I'm going to share that process with you in a minute. And we really need to get the word out that between March 1st and March 12th, that is going to be a complete blackout period. By that time, we cannot continue to shift schedules around. We have 2,150 students and 260 staff members. So every single person makes a change, makes a difference, okay? And so we want to make sure that we're appropriately planned. So at the Board of Education meeting on Tuesday, they did indicate that families would have an opportunity to change their decision regarding virtual to in-person and vice versa. So what we're going to share with you is the process that we have created to gather your feedback. It does not guarantee that we will be able to accommodate that request because of class sizes, but we will do everything we can to take a look. And that process, sharing. Again, this will be posted and will be sent out this weekend in my newsletter and added to our website. So if you desire to make a change, whether, again, you selected virtual and you now want your child to go to in-person, or you selected in-person and you now want to go to virtual, we ask that you complete this request to change so that we have an opportunity to take a look and we will get back to you. I want to be very clear. This is a request. It is not a guarantee that we will be able to make the accommodations. We will do our best, but it is not a final decision. Until you hear back from us, do not plan that any change has been made. Any questions about that, Ms. Lee?
Not about that, but we do have a question about, well, it kind of does. Is February 23rd the last day for students just in phase 1 or for all students? And are there different blackout dates for each phase?
To my knowledge, I have not seen additional blackout. I think that is it. Again, my current understanding as of February 11th at 6:37 p.m.
Okay, will there be any use of outdoor space at QO as an option for lunch for classes or for classes?
Great, yeah. So we, in an optimal world, we will be getting outside as much as we possibly can. So right now we are planning for a cafeteria for students to have a space to eat in there. As soon as the weather starts warming up, we would like to use outside for students to eat in a social distance way on our campus. Again, that does not mean that people go running across the street, and I'm sure none of you have ever done this, but we do have some students who during lunch, it's like, I feel like we're running a sprint, because the second the bell rings, it's like, pew, pew, and we're playing this game. So we will try, because I think that's a brilliant idea, we all do, to have areas outside for students to be able to access and for teachers to be able to teach outside. Okay, so go ahead.
Is February 23rd the latest that the list will come out for students? So when will I guess the responses be answered if you are able to come back or not?
We will be contacting families the week of the 23rd. So, I mean, I'm sure it will probably go to the end of that week, but we do need, you have to remember also spring break is in there. I'm sorry, spring break's not in there. It's at the end of March.
The other questions I'll answer or we'll add, I think they'll be answered later on.
Okay, so this is a lot of information. And of course, this is probably not your typical back to school night, but we figured if we did not address some of these things or talk about them, it's like the elephant in the room. So the changes in the calendar that you need to be aware of is that spring break is going to remain as scheduled. So that is not going to change at all, but there will be 3 days that have been adjusted. And I want to focus your attention to this March 15th launch. Again, we know that for us, the majority currently is April 6th return, but March 8th through 10th are changing a little bit. So on Monday, March 8th, there's no school for students. It's a professional day for staff to prepare. On March 9th and 10th, it's asynchronous instruction for students. It is, and it's my understanding the staff will be sharing information and not check-ins, because the whole purpose is to have staff return and help to set things up and get ready. Okay. All right, I'm going to turn it over, I think, is this you, Ms. Lee?
I can go over it. So the schedule for the second semester, the only main difference right now, we still have our A, B day, then we have our virtual check-in C day when it's a 5-day week, followed by the A day and the B day. The major difference is our Wednesday virtual check-in days. If you look, you'll see that students will work on self-paced assignments in the morning and their virtual check-ins begin in the afternoon. We've noticed that many of our students like to sleep in, and hopefully they'll be able to wake up and get up in time so that they can meet their teachers in the afternoon. And again, first period check-in starts in at 12:30 after lunch and wellness break, and it'll go till period 8, which starts at 3 o'clock. And hopefully these are the opportunities for the students to go meet with their teachers so that they can reassess something, if they have questions about an assignment, or if they need to ask a question about some instruction that took place earlier in the week.
Ms. Lee, I'm going to answer a couple of the questions that are in the chat. So how will the safety of students be affected by QO being a vaccination site? On any given day, I will tell you that, for example, I was there today, we had upwards of a couple thousand, okay, in any given week, all right? So we are doing our best in partnering with Health and Human Services in terms of, sectioning a complete separate section of our building. But I truly can't answer that with 100% certainty at this point. If a student has a period with no class, where would they go during that period? We're going to need to talk to the counselor about that one. Because if it's a gap in the schedule, so for example, if you go first period, no second period, and then need to come back at the end of the day, that will be an issue. So we need to take a look at that. But I think that's going to have to be a case by case basis. There will be no systematic testing of students that we are not, MCPS does not test students. Okay, I'm going to go ahead. All right, so this remains the same for right now. So, this has been the schedule we've been using, and everything remains the same in terms of Cougars Connect and our specific outreach for students. And our calendar continues to be updated. You will notice in my newsletters, on our website, we're constantly taking a look at any of the changes, and information is updated, so you always have that as a reference. All right, Dr. Brown.
Sorry about that. Good evening, everyone. Attendance expectations are always the same, that students be in all of their classes all of the time, that students be present, prepared, and engaged. All students are expected to attend their live sessions. Attendance will be taken each period by the teacher. Students will be considered present when they log into their Zoom class, when they participate in the live roll call, and when they participate in the discussion thread or complete the attendance check in my MCPS. Students will be considered absent when they do not log into the Zoom class, engage in the discussion thread, or complete the attendance check in my MCPS. Next slide, please. Absences. If a student is absent, they must view the recorded lesson within 72 hours. Also, following the viewing of the recorded lesson, the parent or student must complete the live virtual absence form, which attests to the fact that the student has actually viewed the recorded lesson. For medical or other appointments, the doctor's note, if that's appropriate or required, must be attached and submitted to that live virtual form. And those documents go into Ms. Stephanie Bradley, our attendance secretary. The live virtual absence form and any other required attachments must be submitted within 72 hours or 3 days. The language kind of varies depending upon what document you're looking at. Of the student's absence. The live virtual form and the this process are applicable for all student absences. And the live virtual absence form is located on the QOH school website, so you can easily access that. Next slide, please. Students and parents, if you have extenuating circumstances, if you know that something is coming up with a student or family, please communicate with your teachers and administrators and the attendance secretary ahead of time. I would suggest just sending an email to the teachers, the administrator, and the attendance secretary as soon as you understand that there is a situation that's going to go on where your student will be out of school or out of class, so that we can take the appropriate measures. Parents, the Connect Ed calls and Parent View, parents will be notified of student absences using Connect Ed and Parent View. And if you have extenuating circumstances, one of the things that we can do is place a do not call code so that you do not continue to receive those phone calls when you know that your student is going to be absent. So again, all of these procedures are what have been in place, and we continue the same procedures through the second semester this year. Thank you for your time, and everybody have a good evening.
I'll go over this slide. This is for communication for our school. If ever you need to get to, not get to our school, but if you need to reach anyone at our school, please use email. All of us answer our emails and we will provide you with probably the most immediate response via email. You can always check our school website for information that's updated pretty regularly. There are Connect Ed calls that go out weekly for parents in newsletters. And Ms. Thomas also is very active on social media as well as all the administrators. Many of us have our Twitter accounts and we share a lot of information through social media as well.
Thank you, Ms. Lee. I couldn't get myself off camera, back on camera. And so thank you. Great teamwork there, everybody. Thank you, Dr. B. All right. I'm not going to turn off my camera this time because I won't be able to get back on.
So this one is a testing slide update. There's a short video about the AP update, and once the slides are shared after the meeting, you guys can watch. We know there's a lot of information coming out, but if you click on this image, it'll automatically show a 2-minute video about the updates for the AP. There's also information on the slide about the PSAT and SAT update. And this image right here is about our Maryland state testing and what that looks like for each of the grade levels. That's grade 12, grade 11, grade 10, grade 9. I'll put that Google Doc in the chat right now so all of you have access to it. But again, these slides, the videos, and this information will be available to you. And you can always email your grade level administrator if you have any additional questions.
Great, good evening, QO. I just want to go over with you really fast student service learning hours. So contrary to what any rumors may be out there, students still must complete 75 SSL hours to graduate. So keep in mind, students that have entered MCPS for the first time after 6th grade will be given credit based on the year he or she has entered. If you want to get information in regards to that, to ensure that information is recorded, please follow up with Mrs. Shellhorst. She is the go-to person for all of that information. Also want to remind folks that when you do SSL hours, it must be approved, an approved nonprofit organization. Again, you can follow up with Ms. Shellhorst if you have any questions in regards to that. She is also a phenomenal resource if students are looking for places to get SSL hours. So she's a great resource, so please follow up with her. One of the things, last things before I go, is I want to share with you is this is for our seniors. Just remind you that the award for meritorious, I hope I said it correctly, service requires you to have a minimum of 260 SSL hours. So please keep in mind that the deadline for these hours are submitted for the first Friday in April. So please keep that in mind. The county pulls the data for this award and they must have your forms on time for those folks that are seniors. Thank you.
Hello, good evening. I'm Miss Nahara. I was in the middle of writing a response and then the chat, and I just did that. So now I can see my slide. Okay, so hello and good evening. The county has offered us, or your students, a credit, no credit option. And what that means, and this is very new, students, parents, guardians, you will have until the beginning of the 4th marking period, which is April, I wrote that down, 16th, to make the decision about credit, no credit, or withdraw from a course without it being noted on your student's transcript, which means it's sort of the pass-fail option. In addition, students, parents, guardians, you will be permitted to retroactively apply the credit, no credit option to your courses taken this first semester of our 2020-2021 school year. Students and parents are being advised to wait till the 16th till report cards are out. Currently, our counseling department and our registrar are in the middle of learning the process to do so. There will be communication on how you can opt for a credit, no credit option for your classes, either this semester or from last semester. We do strongly encourage that you email your student's counselor because they do know their 4-year plan and their transcript very well, and they could guide in the decision making to see what benefits your student. Next slide, please. Okay, this is also another option that the county is providing us, again, very new, that middle and high school students are able to take up to 2 courses, credit or no credit, that are not specifically required for graduation. And that is very important. Students will not be able to drop a course that is a graduation requirement. I do strongly advise that if this is something you are considering, that you do speak to your student's counselor. Again, they do know the 4-year plan, and it will vary from grade level to grade level. I will tell you that in 9th grade, almost all 7 of your classes are considered a graduation requirement. So there are limitations to this request. So if you feel that dropping a non-graduation required course will benefit you or your child, your student, please email and contact your counselor, and they'll be ready to discuss that option with you. Thank you.
Good evening, Quince Orchard High School. I want to briefly talk about the graduation for the class of 2021. I know I'm not speaking just to the seniors here. I know everyone is heavily invested in this topic of conversation. So I just want to go over what we have available to you as of this moment. So as of now, our graduation date is set for Wednesday, June 2nd, 2021 to be tentatively held at the UMBC Event Center at 2:30 p.m. This is considered Plan A, and I say that very strategically. This is the default plan as of this moment in time. The UMBC Event Center is located in Catonsville, Maryland. Please note that this date and location is contingent upon the finalization of the contract with the graduation venue, as well as a review of COVID-19 health and safety metrics with Montgomery County and the local government authorities in Catonsville. Next slide, please. In the event that the health and safety metrics do not lend itself to hold a large indoor gathering, such as a graduation, and normally, of course, you have over 500 graduates, normally 3,000 guests, parents, family, friends, teachers, staff who are part of this amazing experience. Even with proper mitigation protocols in place, there will be 2 additional graduation options that we will consider. Then we go to Plan B, hold an outdoor graduation ceremony at Quince Orchard High School utilizing the Cougar Dome. It would also be held on Wednesday, June 2nd. Plan C, the last option, would be to hold a completely virtual graduation ceremony. This, of course, was done last year. I think I could speak for everyone here on the team and for all of us. We all want to see our students graduate in person. And it is the hope and desire of everyone here and all of the staff of Quince Orchard and all the students that we can celebrate together in person. So again, whether that's hopefully Plan A or even Plan B, that is the hope and desire that we all have. It all does come down to the health and safety of our students, their families, and our staff, and that is the single most important element in determining how graduation will proceed. Next slide, please. Just a few things about graduation, student and valedictorian speakers. So information is already coming out for students. This was shared at grade level assemblies yesterday. 2 students will be selected to represent the class of 2021, 1 student speaker, 1 valedictorian speaker. Anyone interested in speaking, being a speaker must attend a meeting on February 20th during lunch, and a Zoom link will be provided for that. Students should sign up for reminders about this meeting via the cap and gown form. That cap and gown form was shared in the grade level assemblies, and that information has been made available to students. And of course, if you have any questions, our graduation extraordinaire, Ms. Adams, and that contact information is there for you as well. Certainly, we have a graduation committee. There's several of us on that team. Our senior sponsors, Ms. Jones and Ms. Farrow, as well as myself and Ms. Thomas. We are all here to make sure that the class of 2020 has the most amazing graduation experience ever. So thank you. Just a few reminders here. Again, as we kind of finish up, is making sure that all of our seniors have their credits. We're nearing the end. I could tell you in the past few days alone, as we entered second semester, that I've had numerous conferences and conversations with students and counselors and parents, making sure that you have your credits lined up, and making sure you know what you need to do. Making sure that you have tests lined up. So you mentioned obviously a couple slides ago that we have an SAT option for 11th graders. Obviously in terms of SAT and ACT, right now we don't have options on the table specifically for seniors. However, you may want to certainly check with colleges and other institutions that students may be applying to for next year and make sure that you have everything that needs to be in place. In most cases, it is our understanding that a lot of colleges are waiving some of these requirements. So it's very important that our students be well informed. And then it's just always being connected. Staying connected with the school, using the online remind system, and working with your senior class sponsors and your senior class officers. So thank you very much and have a great evening.
Okay, I'm going to go over some athletics information. Again, I'm going to preface this by saying this is where we're at right now on February 11th at 7 p.m. We're going to have another update coming out to the community tomorrow and a final update on February 23rd. So I just want to preface this by just making sure that everybody understands that. So the registration for our fall in-person season began in Parent View on Friday, January 29th. As of this evening, we have 160 kids registered so far. Registration will close on Monday, February 22nd, and that is a hard date. We have schedules that we need to make as a county. We need to figure out who's going to have teams, who's not going to have teams. We're going to be starting off in pods. So it's going to be pods of 25 with their coaches. And those coaches need to develop those pods. And there's a lot of planning that's going to be going into making sure that we do this safely. So that is why we are closing everything Monday, February 22nd. Please spread the word on that. We're trying our best to do so. But if you are interested in the in-person fall season, Monday, February 22nd is going to be the last day to register, and all registration is done in Parent View. In order to participate in the in-person season, you must have a current physical. That means that it's valid for 1 year from the date of the exam. Back in the virtual season that we did in the fall, we extended physicals by a year, but now that we're going to be back in person, that same physical requirement that was there before is there again. The COVID supplemental questions, there's at the end of the SR8 form, which is the physical clearance form, there are, I believe it's 4 COVID supplemental questions that need to be answered and submitted along with that clearance form. And that's what you need in order to be cleared, as well as the registration. You can upload it when you register, or you can email it to me and I can update your registration. The second semester overview, you see a chart below. The fall season, I know that it says February 13th as the start. I'm going to go over what's going to happen the next 2 weeks, but our first in-person day will be February 27th, and it'll go to April 17th. And that's bocce, boys and girls cross country, cheer, field hockey, football, golf, POMS, boys and girls soccer, and girls volleyball. The spring season will begin on April 17th and finish June 19th. So that is a change. Usually we're done. The state championships are Memorial Day weekend, so we're going to be going 3 weeks after. Yes, we're going to take account of graduation, and we'll make sure that there's no games on graduation. And that season is going to be allied softball, baseball, gymnastics, boys and girls lacrosse, softball, boys and girls tennis, track and field, and boys and co-ed volleyball. The winter sports season was canceled by MPSSAA, the competition season for boys and girls basketball, swim and dive, and wrestling. We hope to possibly do something later on in the school year if we're able to. Probably the concentration on that will be seniors. The reason why these dates are the way that they are is the MPSSAA is our governing body of the state. And they set the seasons. And that's a Comar state law. So that's why we have to follow it. It wasn't Montgomery County that made these seasons or Quince Orchard High School. It was the state, and we have to abide by what they say. Next slide, please. Engagement will begin in person per the recommendations of the COVID-19 task force for MCPS athletics. And our intentions are that we will be in person on Saturday, February 27th. A video and procedures of protocols can be found at this link. So I know that we're going to post this afterwards. The link has also been in a lot of communications we've had. It is also on our QOCougars.com website. But if you want to watch that, it was actually taped at Quince Orchard with our boys lacrosse coach, Coach Gonzalez. And we had 6 boys lacrosse players and 6 girls lacrosse players help us out. Dr. Gales has been around. So, I've been a part of the COVID task force, and, we've been working with coaches and other athletic directors and people from DHHS, principals, people from the community. There's a lot that's gone into this, and we're really excited to get the kids back. More in-depth information can be found at our athletic website, www.QOCougars.com, and it's in the first featured article on the page. When the next communication comes out, I will be adding that as a feature link on there. And obviously, if you have any questions, please feel free to email me at any time, and I will answer whatever I can. There's just a rundown again down here. The fall registration opened on the 29th. We're going to release that preliminary framework for operations tomorrow. February 13th, the next 2 weeks, we're going to be some coaches trainings. Our coaches can provide some virtual resources to students, but we're not going to be meeting with the students on Zoom during that time because for most of the time, the registration is still going to be going on. Our preseason, our spring preseason parent meeting is going to be on Thursday, February 25th at 6 p.m. Obviously, when you register, and I will email everybody that information and the Zoom link. But we will have our preseason meeting before the 27th. That way we can go over all of our protocols, the way things are going to be done. You'll be able to meet with the coaches of the individual sports that night, and really give you as much education, communicate as much as we possibly can ahead of time, the expectations, because we're really going to need everybody's cooperation as we move through. Like I said, again, February 22nd is the last day for fall registration. On February 23rd, we will release the final framework from MCPS Athletics, and that'll set up that meeting that we're going to have on the 25th. And then, right around 8 a.m. on February 27th, we're going to have kids back on campus for the first time in 351 days, I believe, which, I'm really excited about. And I know admin is, and our coaches are, and I'm sure the kids are, and our parents are as well. If everything goes well, we start February 27th. The first contest could be starting on March 19th, and the last day of the fall sports season will be on April 17th. I'm sure there's questions, and I can go ahead and answer them now, but because I am done my presentation.
So Mr. Raberman, will all 4 fall sports be held outdoors?
So as of right now, all fall sports are going to be held outdoors. We are open to have volleyball in the gym. Obviously, you know, that's another vaccination site issue, but everything will be outside. If we have, you know, if there's bad weather and we're not able to participate, there's not going to be an indoor inclement weather plan. Practices will be canceled for, you know, for everybody using fields that day. I will communicate that ahead of time. So that is the deal on that.
This was asked earlier in the presentation, but does a student have to be in person for them to participate in sports?
No, whether you pick the virtual option or in-person option for school, everybody is eligible to participate in athletics. There's also no academic eligibility requirement either. So everybody is, you know, going to be allowed to participate in sports. Yes, we still might have, yes, you know, depending upon our numbers and where we're at, you know, there still might be, you know, there's still a good chance that there's going to be tryouts and there's going to be cuts. But we will be communicating that to you as the final numbers come in, and we have a better idea of what things are going to look like.
I think the last question you also answered earlier, but for other parents, are participants in certain fall athletic programs expected to return early?
So, so it's expected that if you're participating in in-person season, you're going to be returning on February 27th to that first practice day or tryout day. So that's your expectation. But as far as attending school before then, the students will go whenever their phase goes in to school. They'll go in with that phase. There's no correlation between that and athletics starting. Once our student athletes go back into school, we will have an area for those students after school between that last bell to their practice starting, because we will have to stagger some practices to begin with. That way we don't have 200 kids showing up at a time. We also have teachers coming from that don't work at QO, so we're gonna have to start things later. But we will have the cafeteria set up as a study hall. They'll check in, they'll be wearing masks, they'll be separated like they will be during lunch. We'll have at least one adult in there with them. And then they'll be releasing them outside when the practice starts. There's going to be no locker use. So the kids are going to have to, come prepared and bring their stuff with them. And if they're coming from home, make sure that you're prepared to practice when you come, because we're not going to have the locker rooms open. And then the bathrooms will be open outside in the stadium for the student athletes to use during their practices. And we will have a trainer on board, but you can see a lot of that in the video. It goes over our procedures.
Will there be competitive games in the season against other schools?
That is the hope. MPSSA requires 20 days of practice from the time that we start. So as long as we're good to go on February 27th, we hope to go March 19th. I guess the one thing that could possibly get in the way is the gathering limits from DHHS in Montgomery County. Right now we're at 10 inside and 25 outside. But hopefully those will be raised a little bit, and we'll get the chance for the kids to go and compete. But that is the plan.
What time?
And I'll go over this real quick. We will not be allowing fans in the fall, but all of our stadium field games, we have a pick slot camera. And if you get a subscription to the NFHS network, which I think is like $7.99, all the games will be able to be viewed at that time. But our focus has really been to get the kids back on and get them playing, and that's definitely priority number one for us.
So what time will students have to get to the school to practice if they're participating in virtual instruction?
So let's say that there is a 3:15 practice start time. we're going to have like a 15-minute check-in period that we'd like them to arrive. Practices to start off with will probably be 90 minutes long, and then they need to be picked up, right at, practices are going to be ending right at, if it's a 3:15 practice and it's a 90-minute practice, they'll be done at 4:45, and we're going to need parents there to pick them up, or if they provide their own transportation, they walk, they do have to leave the grounds immediately after their practice has finished.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Oberman. Just so you know, Mr. Oberman did share there will be additional athletics meetings to share information. So I did want to clarify something that was asked earlier, because there's one thing I know about the Quincy Orchard community. You are always on top of everything. So I literally just saw an update to the question about testing. So apparently MCPS will implement a regular COVID-19 testing protocol in alignment with research best practices. More details, again, I have no other details. This literally was just announced February 11th. Governor Larry Hogan announced on February 11th that resources will be made available to conduct testing in schools. So I just want to go back because I know that was a question earlier and let you know that I just saw that. And the second part of a question about communication is that we would be working with MCPS and Health and Human Services to craft any communication around any positive tests or any risk of being in contact with somebody who may have tested positive. So thank you for your understanding as we continue to learn and update information. All right, a lot of information, I know, and thank you for hanging in there with us. Thank you again for trusting us to continue to share as much information as we can. Thank you for trusting and believing in the fact that if I had answers, if we had all the answers, we will get them to you as quickly as possible. One of the big ones is we don't control the vaccination site. And yes, we are concerned. So I'm not going to sugarcoat that. And we continue to advocate because our goal is to have our students and staff return safely. So thank you again for your trust and belief in us. Ms. Betcher.
Thank you. Mrs. Thomas, may I share my screen?
Absolutely.
Thanks. I just placed a link in the chat, which is a link to the MCPS website where students and families can log into Parent View. We wanted to ask you at this point in the night to take a moment to visit your child's virtual classroom. We would do that, and I'm going to walk you through these steps by logging into Parent View, either on your computer or using the app on your phone, finding the parent resources, and then landing on My MCPS Classroom, which is known as Canvas. Each of the teachers has created a video for you to see, to introduce himself or herself, and to invite you to reach out with questions. So again, the website that I would invite you to start on is MCPS, where it says Parents, and you can log in to the Parent View login portal. It looks like this. When you go through with your username and password, this is my daughter's, right down here I can see her class schedule, and I go down to Parent Resources, where I can see My MCPS Classroom. When I click My MCPS Classroom, it will take me through to the Canvas dashboard. On the dashboard, I should see all my child's, and both for my children, all their classes. So for a parent's view, it's all the classes combined into one. So it's a little bit chaotic, but I'd invite you to visit by clicking on the class, and you'll find that either in an announcement or here right on the homepage, there will be a link for families welcoming them to see a video for back to school night. And I want to remind everyone that communication is as simple as going to this Canvas inbox and communicating with any teacher in your child's course. And of course, there's also a Synergy mail, another option to communicate. That's what we wanted to do most of all, was to invite our families to communicate with us. So we hope that you'll take advantage of that. We recognize that it's a late night tonight. If you are not able to see your child's courses tonight on the Canvas Classroom, we're going to leave them up over the weekend. So please feel free to stop in and make that connection.
All right. Well, that wraps up our back to school, second semester back to school night. Thank you for being here this evening, and we look forward to continuing to partner with you. Have a great night. Be safe and take care. And never hide your cougar pride.